Wednesday in Nowata started as a cold, wet, rainy, sleety, just overall yucky day. As ugly as we thought Wednesday morning, January 22nd, 2020, was, it was worse for Amanda Moffett and her family. Wednesday morning, the preliminary hearing commenced in Judge Carl Gibson's courtroom at the Nowata County Courthouse. A preliminary hearing is where the first of two judges in a criminal case hears the state's case against the defendant and makes a determination of whether there is or is not sufficient evidence to require a trial. The preliminary hearing is where the defense and the public gets to hear the prosecution's case against the defendant. At 9:38 Wednesday morning, Assistant District Attorney James Pfeiffer called Deputy Robert Popp to the stand. Mr. Popp is no longer employed by Nowata County, but has served as an officer for both the Nowata Police Department and, at a different time, the Nowata County Sheriff's Office. Mr. Popp testified that the evening of October 5th, 2018, he was on duty as a sheriff's deputy for Nowata County and was dispatched on a 911 call to a rural house on County Road 22. We know it as Rabbit Road. Upon arrival, Deputy Popp observed a child on the ground, a teenager. He indicated fire and ambulance services were already on site and were administering medical assistance to the female teen on the ground. The teen appeared to have 4 entry wounds and described for the court where on the teen's torso the wounds appeared. This part of the morning's testimony was obviously difficult for the defendant, Amanda Moffett, to have to listen to. She was naturally seated with her defense attorney, Mr. Winston Connor III, at the defense table, but was understandably shaken by Mr. Popp's testimony. Popp told the court after determining the situation he was able to question Miss Moffett that evening about what had taken place. According to Deputy Popp, Amanda Moffett told him she had been in the house, laying on the bed. Popp said she and her daughter had previously had a verbal altercation, but that was over. And while she was laying in bed, the daughter came in saying there was a dog in the yard harassing their kittens. According to Popp, Amanda said she called for her son, but she also went and got a gun herself. Popp's testimony indicated Amanda went to the porch and saw a shadow she thought was the dog. She pulled the trigger. She told Deputy Popp the gun went off, but would not stop firing. She threw the gun on the ground after the third shot. Popp told the court he located a .38 caliber handgun on the ground a few feet from the porch. Under cross-examination by defense attorney Connor, Deputy Popp identified the make and model of the handgun recovered at the scene and the number of shell casings found. Connor pressed Popp on his understanding of how a gun might continue to shoot on its own after the first discharge. Mr. Popp testified he'd never seen it happen without the gun having been modified to do so. 30 minutes after taking the stand, Deputy Popp concluded his testimony, and local gun shop owner David Lynn took the stand. Assistant District Attorney Pfeiffer asked Mr. Lynn, quote, "You've fired a lot of guns, haven't you?" End quote. To which David Lynn simply replied, "Yes, sir." The court then learned that Mr. Lynn had loaned Amanda Moffett the handgun fired that unfortunate evening in October 2018. At the time, Miss Moffett was employed by Mr. Lynn and worked at a business owned by Lynn, but not at his gun shop. David testified he had known Miss Moffett for a number of years, and she had agreed to enroll in a concealed carry class. David Lynn then told the court that the gun in question requires 12 to 14 pounds of trigger pull to cause it to fire. It was his estimation it would be physically impossible for the gun to fire multiple times without the trigger being pulled each time. Under cross-examination by defense attorney Winston Connor III, David Lynn reiterated he believed the weapon required a trigger pull for each round fired. When questioned about loaning such a weapon to Miss Moffett, Lynn, who had previously explained to the court his reason for supplying the gun, told the court Miss Moffett had assured him she had firearm experience. While she had agreed to take a concealed carry class, Mr. Lynn had documentation with him outlining the dates of several such classes he had offered and informed Miss Moffett of. David Lynn told the court she always found a reason she could not attend. About 12 minutes before 11 a.m. Wednesday, January 22, 2020, a neighbor of Amanda Moffett took the stand. He testified to the location of his property relative to the Moffett house for the court. The neighbor then told the court the night in question he was out walking his dog on a leash when he heard a loud conversation coming from the Moffett property. He said he heard what sounded to him like females seemingly having an argument. He then heard a single rifle shot. 4 to 5 minutes later, he heard 3 more gunshots, but they sounded as if they came from a handgun. He was convinced in his mind the first shot was from a rifle and the 3 others were from a handgun. Upon cross-examination by the defense attorney, Miss Moffett's neighbor admitted he wore hearing aids, but can tell the sound of a rifle shot any time of day or night. He also said he believed there was a delay of 3 to 4 minutes between hearing what he characterized as an argument and hearing the rifle shot, then another delay of 4 to 5 minutes between the rifle shot and 3, possibly 4, handgun rounds. The neighbor testified for some 28 minutes. The final witness at Wednesday's preliminary hearing for Amanda Moffett was another ex-Nowata County Sheriff's deputy. He had been tasked with hand-delivering the gun in question to the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation, the OSBI. He testified in court that the OSBI had made no conclusion that the gun could not, quote, bump fire, end quote, but it could not and would not fire without the trigger being pulled. At 11:43, the state rested. Defense attorney Connor was afforded the opportunity to call witnesses, but declined. He told the court what had happened to Amanda Moffett's daughter was an accident. He could understand the court binding her over for trial on manslaughter charges, but not murder. Judge Carl Gibson disagreed and found there was probable cause to believe a murder in the first degree had been committed. He bound Amanda Moffett over for trial. She will appear before Judge Linda Thomas on February 18, 2020 at 1:30 p.m. Reporting on the preliminary hearing for Amanda Myrene Moffett. For Marcus Yersa and KGCT, hey, Oklahoma's other only locally owned news station, this is Doug Buckner.